All right, and we are recording. Great. Okay, so it is officially time. Welcome everyone to our October Presto virtual meetup. I'm excited to have folks from all around the globe today. Specifically, all of our presenters are based in India. So it's late for them, it's early for us. We're kind of hitting every time zone. So this is, I'm excited about this. So before I pass things over, just a few kind of housekeeping, what I call housekeeping slides. One is, of course, PrestoCon. This is our large in-person community conference. This is December 5th to the 6th at the Computer History Museum in Mountain View, California. Early bird passes are on sale. So if you want to learn more about Presto, if you want to meet the Presto community, I highly recommend and encourage you to come. We also have a day of workshops where you can really get hands-on with Presto. So check it out. Early bird passes are on sale through the end of this month. Also, if you haven't already yet, and I'm assuming most of you have if you're here, but please join your local Presto meetup group. We have them in 6 different areas today. And we're planning a lot more in-person stuff. New York City, early November, Bangalore, late November, to name a few. So we are excited to get the community together in person in many of these locations. So please join your local meetup group if you have not done that already. And then last, we have Presto working groups. So if you are interested in a specific area of Presto, architecture, the optimizer, native worker, or security, we have working groups around those areas. Great way to start working closely with other Presto committers and engineers and get a lot more in depth into these areas. And we have a blog that you can learn more about those if you're interested. Okay, without further ado, we have 2 talks today, and I'm very excited for these. So first, we'll have Shweta from IBM talking a lot more about IBM's Presto journey, where they've come, what they're building, and what the plans are for Presto at IBM. And then I'm going to introduce Sudheesh and Gopi from IBM, who will be talking about the new plugin for Query Audit and Governance for integrations with external policy repositories. So with that, Shweta, I'm going to pass things over to you, and you can share your screen and take it from here. And you're muted, Shweta. There we go.
You can hear me well and see my screen?
We can hear you. Yep, we can hear you and see you.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Ali, for the whole introduction. I'm Shweta, and I am Director for Data Management Portfolio within IBM. My intent on doing this session was to talk about how IBM's journey has been with Presto and what are we doing in the data management portfolio within IBM with Presto. So just a quick preview of where we are. We have been following and looking at Presto for a long time, and we started realizing how the community has been growing and how it has been getting picked up by various other companies who are building solutions on the high-performing SQL engine. And finally, we started working on evaluating some of that pieces, and we selected Presto last year, sometime in November, to build our lakehouse product from an IBM perspective. February, we started, with our efforts around, understanding the code and trying to understand what's good, what's not good, or, evaluating some of that. We realized, the biggest contribution that we started making was around the security area. And you will hear a little bit about that from Sudheesh and Gopi later as well. We have a good number of contributors right now who are contributing to specifically security area, and there's some other areas we will also start contributing in the future. We also acquired Ahana, which is again in sometime in March, which has its own version of the Presto engine, which is typically very high performing. They have done their own. Ahana had done its own enhancement to the products from a performance perspective, which has been very, very useful to us, while we have been implementing our lakehouse product. And finally, in July of this year, we released watsonx.data product, which comes with an inbuilt Presto engine. We call it the 2nd generation lakehouse product because it supports not just one single engine. Presto is definitely one engine that it supports, but it also supports other multiple engines like Spark and the the DB2 Natisa and other native engines that IBM has as well. And there are various other reasons why we call it the second generation lakehouse product, given the way that, the whole stack has been built, and it's open and an open lakehouse, what we call it, where, it's very easy to integrate any of the other, products in the market from an integration aspect. So that's kind of been where we are. We are constantly working on, making the watsonx.data product, enhance in its features and capabilities. And at the same time, we have been constantly looking at how to enhance Presto. Some of the, important contributions that we, if you look at what we have tried to contribute, from a SQL compatibility perspective, we have taken things like fetch first in rows, clause to select, and added those functionalities back into the Presto communities, which have already been merged. As I said about the security hardening pieces, there are several CVs, which are high and critical, that have already been merged into the Presto. Open source Presto. There's a capability around the secret manager plugin, which is under review, and also the HMS TLS, which allows and enables TLS, between the Presto and the HMS. So there are a few of these PRs under review, which will get merged very soon. So our focus has been security, because, IBM is when we build an enterprise product, security is one of the key things. And that's probably one of the first areas that we have started contributing towards to make it a much more enterprise product from an IBM perspective. We also were one of the first, allowing first contributors to allow Presto to work with Hive 4. So watsonx.data actually works with Hive 4 instead of the Hive 3, because of the reason that we had to move to Hive 4 as a result of various security issues that Hive 3 had. And there's already a branch open to, who want to try it out with the Hive 4. Once Hive 4 becomes a formal open version, then I think, that will probably get merged and we will be using it. The last topic, of course, is the last thing, QAAG, which you will listen a lot more from my other two colleagues in the next set of presentations. This is basically in order to perform more audit and governance, beyond just authentication, authorization that typically we add to the product. How do we add more open source? How do we add? This is basically a new plugin type. Currently Presto has 4, and we are asking for a 5th plugin type, which will allow you to provide more audit and governance. And this is again under a PR, which is under review at this point of time. And basically, I think both the next set of presentation will kind of provide more details on the same. So this is what I wanted to talk about, where IBM has been in the whole journey. We realize the potential of Presto, and we will be, continuing to enhance and, provide as much as possible capabilities and make it a better SQL engine as we progress towards that. That's from my side. I will pass it on to Sudheesh and Gopi for the next set of presentations.
Sure. So I'll take a screen. Shweta?
Yes.
Yet to see your screen though.
Yeah, so I just have to 1 second. I just have to rejoin. Sorry about that. There is a
I think you have to enable it.
I know.
Are you able to see the screen? Can somebody give me a thumbs up?
Yep.
yes.
See it.
Yes, Gopi. I just.
All right, let me see if I can switch it to slideshow mode, and we can talk through this. Okay. Me and Sudheesh, I'm Gopi. I am one of the architects in watsonx.data, primarily looking at integrations and extensibility of watsonx.data, and aka Presto, which is one of the engines. So that's been my focus. Sudheesh has been focusing on the Presto engine capabilities and how do we accelerate open source contributions. And one of the key aspects of this, which we started our research on this QAAG plugin, which stands for Query Audit and Governance. That's the acronym that you see there. It was actually a need that we had to figure out for customers, enterprise customers, right? We looked at the 4 plugin types that was already there, and we saw some restrictions that we need to overcome to make it ready to make Presto ready for IBM customers, and so will other enterprises will look for it. So we want to talk about it. What is this 5th plugin type, right? We had connectors, we had data types, we have in the SPI layer, we are talking about the system plugin interface that the Java layer has. We are looking at how to extend this to the C++ version, but that's for a different day. But here, what we are looking at is the Java SPI layer, right? What is this 5th plugin type, and why do we need it, right? We have the system access control, which does authorization and authentication in Presto, and we could plug in any of the authentication and authorization layers like tools like Ranger. Ranger is a classic example. There are other products as well. As far as you implement that plugin type, anything can get in. That's cool. But some of the traditional database world, the analytics world, coming from the traditional database background, they would want to not just govern only be the gate only at the beginning of the query submission, but throughout the life cycle of the query that is running in Presto. And the same query that is going through a life cycle could exhibit behaviors that need to be audited, that needs to be governed, that needs to be, if possible, optimized, or if possible, changed to make sure that the compute, the resources, the user behavior is not only just monitored but actioned upon throughout the life cycle of the SQL query. That's a little more sophisticated. We've heard about these workload managers in the past, right? We have seen traditional workload management layers in database engines, but that evolved into making sure that we have the right checks and balances, starting from the beginning of the query, runtime of the query, at the end when the query is wrapping up, throughout the life cycle, right? That kind of capability is what we were looking at, and we did not find a plugin that can serve that purpose, right? So this is the requirement, right? To say we want to be able to constantly look at the query that is going through a life cycle from planning to execution to throughout runtime. If the query is running for like a few hours, how is it behaving? How do we monitor it, and how do we act on that query behavior? And if essential, uh, intervene to better optimize, workload manage, and if need be, check the query that could be, hogging the CPU or hogging the resources from some of the other parallel important workloads that are running, which is essentially workload management space. But that is just one sliver of the query and audit plugin, query and audit governance plugin type. So begin, runtime, and at the time of wrapping up, we should make sure that all the audit elements for non-repudiation, making sure that the resource utilization is captured. And it could be a different full-fledged cloud service that we could call into when we are doing all these things, right? It need not be just a library inside Presto, but it could go out to call an elaborate enterprise service that does these things in a much more elaborate way, and could feed into other services that are providing analytics on top of the Presto cluster behavior that we would like to see, and we would have to want to have visibility to all the users that are submitting these queries. Allow, deny, mask, transform are all fine, but this is much more beyond it, and it has to be having an extensible aspect, right? That customers can bring in their own elaborate services, and how can they plug in into Presto to be able to do all this, right? So yeah, so Sudheesh, you want to go into the details of this, or yeah, I can do it as well.
Yeah, sure. So thanks, Gopi. So I think that kind of covers a lot of motivation behind this plugin type. And first of all, this is my, I would say this is my first Presto community official meetup. I have met a lot of people. So I just want to also take this opportunity to introduce myself. I'm Sudheesh, and as Shweta and Gopi was saying, I got a chance to work with watsonx.data, and I'm an architect with watsonx.data. And the main is one of my day job is to actually pick Presto, and then allow Presto to be able to be used as part of our architecture. And the one area of interest is security and governance. And I'm also part of the security working group, which Tim is managing. And I see the kind of excitement working in this community. So first of all, I want to thank the community for allowing us to be able to, jump in and start contributing, talk to people. So it's just amazing. So the experience is so amazing with the Presto. And when we talk about the security and governance, as Gopi mentioned, the Presto has existing capabilities, and we really are using some of those as well, right? And the requirement here is to go for a fully fledged governance and audit requirements. And the missing thing that we found, or something that can be extended as well, right, in some of the plugins, but we need a common method by which you should be able to choose the targets dynamically. Like, for example, the level of governance required for user 1 versus level of governance required for user 2 may differ based on the contextual differences or based on the behavioral aspects of the historic nature of the what a user one has tried to execute versus what user two has tried to execute, right? So that's one thing. As well as also Gopi clearly explained, some of these systems, these data production systems, are as big as Presto or much bigger than Presto. So those capabilities are very, very heterogeneous, and it's not just a simple API call and a Boolean check, right? So for example, you can build a system access control plugin, and then you can say yes or no answers, right? And we can also achieve some of the masking, maybe some using some filters. But these systems are like as big as something like they can look into the behavioral aspect of the user, the client IPs, and they can also say, looking at all other transactions, all other 100 transactions, and then and look at the deviations and stuff like that, right? So we needed to get some mechanism which also pertaining to the Presto plugin architecture, because one thing that definitely I personally like, as well as I've seen other architects in IBM, they like the extensibility of Presto. So we want to still use the extensibility of Presto as well as to solve our problem. So we certainly saw a gap there, so which needs a multiple ability to plug in this at any point, at various levels of the the query life cycle, and then ability to use that at various places in integration points in Presto. With that, Gopi, if you can move to the next one. Gopi, can you move to the next slide? So now QAAG is a plugin type. We propose it as a plugin type. So essentially means that you should be able to write any governance and audit, or governance and audit together, a new plugin, and you should be able to just extend the interface. The interface that you are seeing in this slide is what we are actually using in some of our, in watsonx.data, we are kind of using this plugin. So if you see, the primary difference here is you can send Presto at any intersection point. Presto can send heterogeneous parameters, and it also will get these heterogeneous parameters back based on how the data protection or the target system analyzes this and responds back. So based on that, the responses will be so heterogeneous. And I also talk about the chain co manager and other stuff. But the main thing here is that we propose it as a new plugin type. All we need is the SPI dependency, and once that is resolved, you should be able to develop on top of this interface and build any plugin type which can get a QAAG context. And so, what do you mean by QAAG context? So, QAAG context is nothing but the set of variables, set of session properties, set of usual stuff that you might need as part of a governance use case. And this is something that you can extend as well. This will be this could have different values depending upon the context. For example, we have an event listener architecture within Presto, and that actually captures the life cycle of query as well as splits and other stuff. So you get a lot of details regarding how the query is maturing the objects and stuff like that, and you can build an external external interfacing code there. You can push the details to some object store bucket, or you can push the details from there to the database, and those kind of things can be done. Now, we want to, let's say, for example, we want to integrate Presto with an auditing system. That's a good integration point. But the thing is that it's not a well-defined structure where you can simply put a plugin and turn on and then enable the event listener to send the details using the same kind of QAAG context that you would have already available to you in the same query dispatch as well. So there are various integration points, such as the initial place where the query is coming, while it is just a string, it is then parsed, and then it goes to the state the analysis phase, and it then goes to optimization, and then and it goes to execution, and it comes back, and then you have all these events connected. the protection system actually takes a decision based on multiple inputs at multiple exits. So when Gobi mentioned about exit, it means the call to the outside. So you should be able to control this execution flow. The new plugin that we are proposing, the plugin type that we are proposing, should be able to control the query dispatch or execution flow, as well as it should be able to rewrite in some cases the query, which is also, you will be able to see some capability similar to this. But the rewrite is based on the previous exits or previous data points that has been given to the data protection system. It should also be able to influence the flow, like for example, statement analyzer, while the analysis flow is going on, and also ability to send the trails and other details to auditing system, as I was talking about. With that, so that's the plugin type definition. We'll also, along with the PR, we will also add some extensive documentation. We have an issue which has a talk about the preliminary architecture. Some of these details have to go to that issue as well. So we will provide more details to that to the community. Gobi, you can move to the next one. So this is as we are talking about the governance use case, as we see, based on our research and experience with the traditional databases and warehouses, as well as in the lakehouse, lakehouse architecture we are currently building in watsonx.data. We figured out that it's a multi-level reality, right? So you will have, for example, if there is an event listener which can actually spit the event details regarding query, regarding splits and other things. It can be extended as well. And there is a query dispatch flow which actually started when you fired a query against the Presto engine, and then that goes to a chained QAAG manager. The chained QAAG manager is the central piece in this overall design. It can actually, I'll show you a small demo as well at the end of it. It can actually pick the QAAG configurations. You can have a number of plugins. Each of these plugins can actually point to different systems. It can, let's say the plugin 1 is a very preliminary plugin, and it can talk to, let's say, for example, Ranger, and plugin 2 can actually talk to a bigger system. It could be based on data lineage, data deviation. You have some intrusion detection mechanisms, etc., which is sitting separately. So your plugin 2 should be able to talk to that, and then there could be multiple auditing systems depending upon the requirements. Now the query comes into the dispatch manager. At dispatch manager, it can have multiple exits to the chain QAAG manager, and chain QAAG manager can detect, based on the user, based on the context, to which level of governance it needs to provide at this point in time. And a simple example, for example, user one have been using this, and these are some requirements that you will start seeing when you wear the hat of an enterprise architect, and then place Presto as a central piece of your solution, right, of architecture. So if user one has been calling Presto, let's say beyond threshold, and the threshold is something that is defined outside Presto. It's not a Presto concern to handle. First of all, it's a governance policy. As Gobi was mentioning previously, there are various policies that you can set, right? Beginning from, phone number need to be masked, social security number need to be obfuscated and stuff like that. That's a traditional example, but it can go much beyond that. You can talk about very creative and dynamic stuff, like a user which has hit more than 1,000 times. And within this much time, you should be able to give an advanced level of governance. So if the user has already crossed a particular threshold, you redirect that user to governance system 2 versus governance system 1, right? And it also can depend upon various budgetary equations, as well as what the pricing and other models, right? So none of this is actually a traditional engine concern. But when you take Presto and then place it as a part of central piece of the puzzle, you will start seeing that okay, this needs to be added. And then I would agree with you if the argument is that okay, this is not a Presto concern. I completely agree with you. And this is what some of the discussions between that happened between me and Gobi and other experts. We figured out that This is not a Presto concern, but this is something that will come into Presto query lifecycle. So this is definitely a plugin. So anybody should be able to plug in. So if I am a user and if I am hitting Presto, I should get the governance that I need based on the pricing that I have, I have purchased the system with. And as well as if I'm an admin, I should be able to protect the system and enable the governance and security at a level that based on the context and the dynamic context that which it is demanding. Right. So simply chain cock manager will be able to pick the configurations. And obviously this is at beginning stage. I personally believe that this is going to get extended a lot. It's gonna get enhanced, and depending upon various requirements, this can be extended and enhanced. At a preliminary level, the chain cog is going to sit. I'll show you an example configuration as well. But, depending upon the level of governance that you need, that is being configured, Presto should be able to pick it up and then offer the governance. In future, this can also at the same level itself, you can have, let's say, level 1 should be able to trigger system 1 and system 2, and level 2 should be able to trigger system 1, 2, 3. So it could be an actual chaining that can happen. So we can go to that kind of extent of implementation as well. So this is where the traditional plugins might have a gap, and QAAG manager should be able to come in and build, allow anybody to add their own plugin type. So we can keep adding more and more QAAG plugin type implementations. So with that, Gopi, can you move to the next one? So this is an example that we can, this is an example which we talked about. We have a preliminary example here, which again, in this, we can talk about policies and some of externally managed entities and constructs, wherein data protection system that will be in its own existence. It could be a cloud-based system. It could be an enterprise system wherein somebody can install it as well. So you can go and configure various policies and it will evolve, right? And it may not be just talking to the Presto and engine. It may be talking to various other systems the same customer or client or administrator might have configured and using, right? So based on that, it keeps building the decision points and insights as well. So it is an intelligent data protection system that we are talking about. And I might also request Gopi also to touch base some of the basic use cases here. So can we move to the next one, Gopi? Yeah, so the QAAG plugin, the chained QAAG manager, it can get multiple exits. We talked about that earlier. So we are just calling out the various entry points which can hit the chain QAAG manager. Dispatch manager is an obvious choice, and in this you can have we can have multiple QAAG exits at various intersection points, and event listener is obviously a choice for building quality audit events, and it goes to chain QAAG manager. The same entity is going to receive the request, governance and audit request at any point in time, and the statement analyzer is actually coming in the same dispatch flow, and finally it goes there. The one speciality about the statement analyzer is it can be really extended. It's my personal, it can be further extended to to handle some of the deeper level the governance use cases. So these are three intersection points we can actually invent more and more, because as Gopi was mentioning, this is not going to be a single point decision, right? This is not like authentication where you take some data, send the identity to the authentication system and say yes or no. This is where the system will, the data protection system, which is on the right hand side of the equation, will evolve its understanding about the user, understanding about the subject, understanding about the data, and also the context, right? And then take dynamic decision based on the contextual change. So we need multiple intersection points to be able to make the same call. And the chain cog manager should be able to pull out the configuration and decide what to do and which plugin to be called. So, and it can also in future, maybe in recent future, maybe we can have the chaining of multiple cog plugins at same level as well can be introduced as an extended feature. So this can go to a complete data protection system. And it could generally, I mean, this is just a very miniature thing that we have put here. It is much more extended thing that a data protection system will do. It will do, data source and data classification. It won't just take it and look into a static configuration and decide. You start classifying the data. So that if you put the hat of a Presto expert, you will start realizing that the data that would come from dispatch manager, for example, would be mostly related to the query lifecycle, the session properties and other things, right? So we are obviously writing a build the default context method as we speak, and that will be able to build all the normal necessary stuff that is required by any data protection system at a minimum, which obviously that method can be extended again, which obviously will help in the first data source and classification process. And if you look at the event listener, will have lots of details about the event completion, for example, query completed and the split details and other things. Lots of plant related and other stuff will come into event listener. It's an existing prior art in Presto, so we could definitely use that. That will also help in the data and data source classification, right? It will help, and if a fully matured data protection system will consider this, it will try to correlate stuff, and then it can go into the next level where it start monitoring the user activity. It could happen parallelly, but based on its evolving classification and its more evolving understanding about data and data source, is going to build, it's going to build a better ability to monitor the user activity. It could be more than just user, it could be any entity, right? So, and then there are certain compliance rules and policies that an administrator can come in and build, not just for Presto, right? This is going to be an enterprise requirement for them. So it will be, Presto is going to be part of the puzzle. So obviously they can come and create the policies. It could also fetch the policies from external systems and other things. So that's where you can create this, and it also has some ability to enforce some of these policies as well, right? So now it keeps detecting data deviations, maybe threat detections, recommendations, insights, and so on, right? So depending upon which system you have, the abilities of these systems are like, really heterogeneous, right? So it can look into the policy store, it can look into the kind of compliance level that has been configured, and then it start taking decisions. And these decisions are not going to be binary, right? It will be more than that. It'll also be a complicated object, or maybe as a set of properties, and depending upon. So it comes back to chain cog manager. Chain cog manager will be able to supply it back. Obviously, event listener is like it's just is actually kind of a more inclined towards auditing, whereas dispatch manager, for example, it can get recommendations about deviations and severity, and based on that it can take decision. It can also sometimes get binary decisions. So we can have some default methods in QAAG manager. We already have some default methods in QAAG manager. We take some binary decisions based on some of these generic output, and it can sometimes kill the query itself if it figures out that no, it should not allow this query to be processed. In statement analyzer, for example, it can actually return a set of property key value pair, which can influence statement analyzer and probably rewrite the query. In some cases, the original query can be actually modified, and it can save some time because it's already parsed, and so it can influence that, right? So this is all going to happen dynamically, and the decisions are going to be context based depending upon the user activity. So for the same user, today it gets a different decision versus tomorrow it's going to get a different decision. It's all need multiple exits, all these exit points, and more exit can be found, right? So this is something that we have definitely used in our Presto use cases, and more can be found depending upon where you want to place Presto, right? So that's why we are talking about the two main thing: monitor data activity, discover and classify the data, and use the multiple exits to really handle the governance in a more comprehensive way. So with that, Gopi, you want to go to the next one?
Yeah. So I'd like to add something here, Sudheesh. So let me give an example that came from the field in the past, in this space, where we had to do decision making at runtime, not at compile time, or not at the beginning of the query, but the data would be required at runtime. So there was this requirement that we cannot allow queries that can reveal the identity of a particular person, or it cannot be a let's say you are computing some or if you're showing some salary data, we are going into the data, right? It's not just the syntax of the query, but the actual data itself that we want to govern. You would want to not reveal the identity of whose salary is it, or even be able to guess whose salary is it. We are going into some of the PII and sensitive personal information space. But in the modernized data warehouses, this is like a critical aspect. Like we cannot take it for granted, and Presto should be able to participate or make it easy to extend Presto to be able to do some of these checks and governance at runtime. Now, we could always say, like, if you're doing a select of individual rows, have a rule to block it, have a ranger rule to block it, or any other authorization layer to block it. And if you want to, if you say, average of salary, show that to the user, that's one possibility of allowing the query to execute only in an aggregated scenario. But even that could be risky, where if the number of rows in the table is only one, and if for some reason there are other elements in the row that can reveal the identity of who that person is. Now, again, we are leaking sensitive personal information, and that can infringe upon data privacy aspects. So I'm not saying solve all these things in Presto. I'm saying that if there are such governance layers that are services that are already built by enterprises, Presto should be able to seamlessly participate through API calls at various stages of the query. That is the intent. So there are open source libraries that are out there that can catch scenarios where if the query reveals some personal sensitive information based on other elements that are being queried in an indirect way, there are engines out there that can catch those things. If you give the data, it can catch those scenarios and then say, no, in a normal day, this query can be executed by this user, but I found something at runtime that can reveal the identity of something, of some person in the result set, even though you're querying for some aggregated value. There is an indirect way that you can, the user can figure out that this person's, the data that is being presented is of this person. So some of these sophisticated use cases can be externally handled, but Presto can participate using this plugin. The way this would happen is like you do the basic checks with QAAG plugin 1, and then you do some additional advanced checks like runtime properties, like is it going to be long running and things like that in plugin 2. Then some of these data privacy rules. Data protection is one, data privacy is one, data regulation is another. So the number of layers that you could go when it comes to governance, it depends on how the customer or how the Presto deployer is taking to what level, right? And all we are saying is enable them to do it. We don't have to solve all those things in Presto. Some of it is already solved elsewhere that Presto can easily tap into if it opens up that gate, right? Or that ability to call into those sophisticated data protection and policy and regulation engines. This is as you go deeper and deeper, we can see that the governance can be extended to whatever level that the customer would like to extend it to, not restricted to a standard template like allow, deny, mask, and so on with a scalar function. That's a given, right? That's table stakes. All right, over to you, Sudheesh.
Yeah, so excellent points, Gopi. So one of the things that I noticed in what Gopi mentioned, right? So we know the security left shift in development. So this is kind of a right shift of responsibilities. We're allowing the right systems to take the decisions or build the insights, while Presto be able to participate in that. So that's an excellent point. I think some of these points that Gopi mentioned could be articulated in a Presto wiki. If community is interested, we could build an objective of where we want to reach in terms of governance in Presto and for its community, right? So that's something we can work out. So with that, Gopi, maybe we can move to the next one. Probably this is correlated to something that Gopi was explaining. This is just a traditional example. Maybe Gopi, you want to take this example? I mean, this is the policy, the masking stuff.
Yeah, so PII data that is out there, first thing is business types, right? Detecting, there will be services out there, mature services out there that customers have built that can detect PII data like phone numbers, email addresses, personal names. One could go to an extent of figuring out some data that is very specific to that customer that matches a regular expression. That could be considered some data that needs to be protected according to that customer. This can be an endless list of what we call data formats that we can protect and govern using customized policy engines. And we have a way of doing this in the watsonx.data flavor of Presto that implements this QAAG plugin. that is calling a data protection service that could detect these custom data types and then accordingly act in terms of governing those data types, right? There are protection engines that could, if you give that query, the protection engine could rewrite that query to the target database that you want to run that query. Like it can go as deep as like depending on whether Presto wants to run it natively on a specific connector like Iceberg or Hive or Hoodie, but it can also go after federated data sources like proprietary databases that Presto exposes connectors to. So the limit of how sophisticated these policy constructs can be extended with QAAG plugin is pretty high. And this is just a screenshot of how we are doing this in the flavor that is running of Presto that is running inside watsonx.data.
If you move to next, I mean, so this is what Gopi was mentioning. This takes some. This is a preliminary example, right? So as Gopi is mentioned, that possibilities are endless, depending upon the capability of your target system or the number of systems you want to target, right? So it can be both ways. You might be talking to a very comprehensive governance system, or you may be able to build a comprehensive governance solution by talking to 5 different, average systems as well, right? So and what we propose here, ladies and gentlemen, in front of this community is a place, a manager that is a first class citizen within the Presto coordinator, which multiple intersection points can make a call to, and then it can also it can allow the Presto to take further decisions and influence it. So in this case, the policies which Gopi was mentioning is enacted, and finally the result would look like this. And this is something obviously that we have used in our solution. We were able to successfully plug in this. And the other thing is that we need flexibility to plug in further plugin which is based on all these governance policies and other things. We need to be able to dynamically take decision. Presto should be able to dynamically take decision on to which is the target that it needs to target to, which is a level of governance it needs to provide to the user, depending upon the configuration as well as the contextual reality. So with that, I will try to share my screen, which failed earlier. Let me see whether I can do that. Maybe you can confirm if you're able to see my screen.
Let me stop sharing.
Yes, we can see it now.
Thank you, Ali. Thanks for confirmation. So this is a latest 284 Presto, which I might have forked, cloned maybe 2 weeks before. I just added the QAAG capability here, and I built simple plugin type. I don't have a larger data protection system at the backend. What I did is I changed 2 governance levels here. So you can add any number of governance levels, and then these are individual QAAG plugins. So I built a user-based governance based on my own imagination, and query-based governance. And this can definitely go to a level where which Gopi was rightly pointing out, right? So those systems are really, really evolved. So depending upon what you want to do that. So for the interest of open source community, I built some 2 samples plugins. This is of type QAAG, all you need to do is add a chained QAAG property here, and then build your plugin types which is pertaining to the QAAG interface. And the QAAG interface is something that we have shown earlier, which is which is based on one input, which is the QAAG context, and one output, which is going to be a map which has all the decision points which you can use. So with that, so I will just show an example here. So the dispatch manager has, I have just enabled, we have a code which is more evolved than this. This is in the interest of this demo. I have added this here. You can add any number of exits based on the the level that you want, and you say that query QAAG manager is going to pick the plugin which is targeting the query level of governance, and you can add user, you can add any arbitrary level. You have to have a corresponding configuration which is supporting this. So you say query or user, or it could be level 1. It could be anything that you want to use here, depending upon what is the stuff. And this has to be a fully qualified QAAG plugin and implementation. And just to show you an example, this is a simple QAAG plugin. It took me 30 minutes to build this plugin. That's all, right? So the flexibility that we need here is, 1 second. So user governance. So this is so you see, this is the user governed plugin type I have built, and what it does is it checks the user. I have built a rule that the query per session limit is 3. I mean, this is not how it is done, right? In an enterprise system, it has its own policy manager. It builds the policies dynamically as well based on the thresholds and other things, right? So here, what I did is, this is my plugin code. All it took me is 10 minutes, and I just you looked at which is the user in the QAAG context, right? And then based on that, if that user is crossing, if that existing user is crossing 3 times or 4 times, I build a rule saying that don't allow the query to continue. So that is sent as again as an object, and I have an interpretation logic in the chain QAAG manager. Right now I'm sending an exception back, which comes back to the CLI. So let me show you that. So I can execute show catalogs here, and see, it is throwing. So Gobi, is my screen visible? Are you able to see this? Ali?
Yeah, we are able to. Yeah, we are able to see it.
Thank you. So this is a decision taken by that small plugin which I have built. In fact, it goes back to the actual data protection system in a real use case. In this case, for in rest of the community, I built a small plugin. We can give back all plugin samples as well. I believe Presto DB allows us to build sample consuming software as well. So we can actually I can send those code as well back to community. So this is coming from this plugin. It says that it exceeded query. And I also, you can see that there is a query governance, and I built in another completely different plugin, which is also another 10 minutes job. So what does it say is, if you so I built a rule saying that if you have wildcard in your query, don't allow it, right? Select star from test, and it says failed because wildcard is not allowed. And this is completely 2 different exits. This is 2 different systems that is taking decision in same flow and same plugin type. And you can we can send in the changes which is related to the chaining. It can be a single exit as well. When you have the chaining within a single level, we can have chaining within single level. We can have chaining using multiple exits as well. Now, in a real scenario, this is going to be a decision that would be made by the system based on also the previous exits, previous calls to the data protection system from not just Presto, maybe other engines, which has been invoked by the same client IP or user, which system has a capability to detect. It may also be depending upon the audit events that you might have sent from, for example, event listener, right? So the fun fact about this plugin type is that you can keep adding the chains of governance level that you need. In fact, you can build a very strong governance around your Presto installation by using usual capabilities as well. And you have an interpreter called chain cog manager that can actually interpret the context versus what is being coming from outside, and depending upon how the plugin is being implemented. So, and the data types that we have used both ways are maps, and so you can put any objects that plugin is going to take and understand. And the dependency is just on SPI. If I can show you that. So, for example, this is the plugin, and it is coming from, you can see that it's coming from SPI. You definitely have a dependency on this particular your Presto SPI jar file. Once you have it, you can just build any number of such plugins and exit it. So with that, this is this, and the same plugin we have used it to the extent that you have seen the screenshots, the data protection system, which Gopi mentioned earlier in his presentation. We built the same plugin to call a larger system, and which was taking decisions, and which was telling us whether to write a query, rewrite a query, or to actually mask some of the outputs and things like that. We in fact also could use this for like externalizing the optimization of your query, or externalizing some of the requirements which might traditionally maybe placed within a responsibility of Presto, but you want to really externalize it. So it can be, the number of use cases can be very, very extensive depending upon where you place Presto in your application and solution. So this is what we had on QAAG plugin type. And we also had some contributions related to, just want to brief upon that. We also have some contributions related to say further related to security. This is another PR that is in progress. So there is something called secrets manager plugin type that we are introducing, and this is, and we have also built a plugin which is targeting the free vault, and you can use this to handle the encrypted values within Presto. One use case that we have come across or used is the catalog use case. So when you load the catalog or the connector, the username, password, credentials, everything is out and open. It's written in the property file. So definitely that's not something that how you want to place Presto. You don't want to keep the credentials open. So we built a plugin type, which is secrets manager plugin type, which is a very simple thing where you can connect to a vault kind of a system, and you can pull out any secrets in any context and then pull it back and put it there. And load catalog is a classic example where we could integrate that stuff. So that there is a PR open that I welcome community to review that. It's under review. We had one approval. We are further waiting for the full design review and other things. Just wanted to touch upon that. So Gopi, do you want to add anything further on QAAG? Otherwise, I kind of showed the basic demo, and while we are building this PR towards its maturity with the community, we can definitely give out some of this sample plugin as well.
Sure. Yeah, I think the extensibility of Presto was our primary focus when we were thinking about this plugin. In this screen, so Sudheesh, if you can show that screen, I want to call out something that you had flashed in that screen. So if you see the phone number, it's a classic example of how you can customize PII data. It's not like some other phone number. It is a portion of the phone number that is detected as a data type that you want to hide, not just simply redact the whole thing, or not just another random phone number. There are algorithms to do that. Imagine if customers have their own account numbers or regional, their own data types, you can do something like this. And it's powerful where the number of algorithms that you can write around data protection and policies are limitless. And we did it through Presto, right? So that's, I will leave it at that. I just wanted to say that thanks everyone for the opportunity to talk about this this plugin type, and we are excited to see how we can make it consumable for the larger Presto community, which we have raised a PR for.
Yep, and I want to take a few seconds to thank Ali, as well as all other, the community members who is giving us this opportunity. It is a wonderful experience to work with this community. I worked with other communities. Presto so far has been very smooth, very encouraging, and the governance process around the PRs are so open as well as very controlled. And thank you for giving us this opportunity. Thanks a lot.
Well, thank you, Sudheesh, Gopi, and Shweta. Great presentations, and this is awesome. So we appreciate the community members like you, like IBM, that are working really hard to solve problems and then contributing it back to the open source project. That is really important for open source, and it's so great to see. So appreciate that. So we are at time. I will just mention, if you do have questions, feel free to come off mute and ask, or pop them in the chat. And then I'll just share my last slide, which is just where the recordings are. So we have a Presto channel, Presto YouTube channel. All of our recordings today will be there, past meetups, all there as well. So feel free to check that out. And I'll just mention one more time, PrestoCon, first week of December in the Bay Area. Hope to see some of you there. All right. With that, folks, thank you so much again to the presenters. It was so awesome. I think if there's any questions, maybe we can stick around for a few minutes, but I will officially say we can end the meetup, but we'll be around if you have any questions. Thanks everyone for coming. Artur, I don't know if you had a question because you just put your camera on, but feel free to ask if you do. Nope. Okay. Hey, Hamid, good to see you.
Hi. Yeah, I have a comment over here, not a question. So it is, as you said, it's very important to connect to the external systems because monitoring is key over here. And monitoring not just understands one query, it understands all queries, understands all users. And particularly for attacks, this becomes very important. We have completed even big projects for US government, and we have seen this. So just paying attention to one query was never enough. So we worked on that quite a long time to actually convince them that what needs to be done, because there are triangular attacks. So single query just doesn't know what the other query is doing for triangulation. So it is very important to connect it to the monitoring system. So a good monitoring system is essential in all of these. And on the top of that, the monitoring system must be SQLable so I can do analytics on that real time. Okay, which right now doesn't exist. Okay, and there are players in the market that they have it, such as Databricks, but doesn't exist over here. But that's essential. And the other thing is that type of system is also required for cybersecurity. Okay, so it is important to pay attention to the Presto runtime, as you said, provide libraries for dynamic masking, for example. But they also need to pay attention to other methods used, for example, for masking and monitoring, and these are called on the wire, which means that it doesn't matter what your backend database is, they pay attention to the wire protocols, but there are like, a dozen of them. And then they change the data in the wire protocol before sent to the users. In fact, IBM Cloud is very strong in that one. It's a separate system from databases. Okay, and recently they have actually upgraded that significantly. There are trade-offs over there, because performance usually is not as good as if you put it in the engine, because engine can do all of that in parallel. whereas around the wire, it's much more difficult to do it in parallel. Nevertheless, there is another line of defense over there. So that includes policies, and those policies is good to be sort of synchronized, but today they are not. Everybody has some strengths and weakness in different areas. Having said that, no matter what you do, there is always something that the hackers can do beyond and do that. And we have faced that but in the past. And those things are usually very specialized engine out there. They are very expensive in terms of execution. It slows down the whole damn thing. But if it is necessary, they do that. So therefore, paying attention to the runtime at some point will include those libraries or subsystems for the cases that is required. Having said that, one part of this at the runtime we need to pay attention to is confidential computing. And the best one out there, actually, as far as I know, is Azure Synapse. Okay, so this has been extensively discussed around IBM and with the partners and with the others. So the thing over here is that we are living in the world of virtualization. It's not single engine, none of this stuff. So as you said, pay attention to the external common services that we can use. Because particular virtualization, we have N engines and query pipeline, particular ETL goes across all of them. So even the workload management is affected. And these different systems are owned and operated independently. They have their own governance. Then, of course, go an umbrella governance on the top of it, but they have local regional governance in different parts of the world. So all that needs to be done correctly. So all it tells you that it's not a single engine. So we need to pay attention to runtime, but paying attention also in the context of the bigger pipelines, for example, that we run, or bigger governance that we have, wire protocol. We need to pay attention, but those things are deployed. I mean, we can't just say it is us and nothing else. Anyway, good work.
Excellent point.
But there's more work to do, a lot more, and we need to orient it towards that.
Yep. So I believe that we can build some, probably this is something I just still discuss with community. We can build some, working with you, Gopi and others, we can build some real, analysis and where Presto need to move as a community, right? Proposals and everything. So I believe there is an opportunity. Excellent explanation.
Yeah, of course, community benefits from the experience of its members, not the fantasy of its members. So we have to pay attention to that. If they don't bring experience to the community, then it becomes a fantasy. So that's what I'm talking about. All these experiences matters, and every one of the participants in the community has his own commercial interest. So they go in there and do things. IBM is an example of that. So we need kind of bring it together to make sure it succeeds. As a participant, not as a whole thing. Okay.
Thanks, everyone. It was great.
All right, guys. Okay, bye.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. See you next time.
Thank you.